Hey everybody, it's Cass and Core TV. It's your girl, Miss Public Info, here with the latest and greatest and sometimes hated updates of the most high-profile cases going on around the country. Really appreciate you guys joining me today. So sorry that I didn't get to you yesterday. It was just a little bit of a late start to the week, but here we are, here in a living color, back with you all. Thanks so much for joining. We're going to get going on today. First, before we get going, we want to extend our sincerest condolences to D'Angelo, soul singer D'Angelo, who lost his battle earlier today. With a private battle with pancreatic cancer. Certainly came to a surprise of many of us out here in fanland. I definitely am a D'Angelo fan, and really such a shocking surprise that he was fighting this, but he did lose his fight. Of course, you should know that D'Angelo shared a 27-year-old son with recently deceased singer, soul singer, Angie Stone, who lost her life just 7 months ago in a car accident during her touring. Their son, Michael, who is 27, is now, asking everyone to keep him in his prayers, having lost both of his parents within 7 months of one another. Certainly is a hard thing to do. So we here at Cast and Court TV extend our sincerest condolences to Michael, his brothers and sisters, siblings, respectively from Angie Stone and D'Angelo. We extend those condolences and wish him well, and we'll be praying for his healing in this most difficult time. Now, today I'm going to talk about two cases. I'm going to talk about Luigi Mangione, which of course I have not talked about at all. But I'm also going to talk about the mass shooting that happened this past weekend, homecoming, there in Leland, Mississippi. But let's start with Luigi Mangione. Now, Luigi Mangione, as you all may or may not know, some of you just may not have been keeping up on this, but this is Luigi Mangione here on the left side of the screen. Luigi Mangione has been accused of unaliving the man on the right, who was rather the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. Now, Brian Thompson last year, he was unalived, gunned down there in front of a hotel where he was going to be entering a conference with investors and others, interested parties there at United Healthcare to talk about new investments, business, and all of that, when someone who is allegedly Luigi Mangione came up to him and unalived him point blank in cold blood and ran off. Now, eventually, this was a long manhunt for those of you who don't remember or just have remember some of it. This was a days long or weeks long rather a manhunt for Luigi Mangione or for the person who supposedly did this to him. I say supposedly because Luigi Mangione has pleaded not guilty. Luigi Mangione is 27 years old. He's pled not guilty to the state and federal charges in the fatal shooting of Brian Thompson. This happened on December 4th of 2024. Now, he this set off, of course, a multi-state search for the gunman after the suspected shooter had slipped away from the scene and rode a bike into Central Park. And then this was all before taking a taxi to a bus depot and that offer services to nearby states, like several nearby states. Eventually, they caught up with Mangione at a McDonald's there in Pennsylvania, where some of the employees there said that he looked familiar. Now, if you recall, at the time, they were looking for someone who had a backpack. They were looking for someone who fit this profile, right? And this backpack was very sort of famous because it was sort of infamous. It was big and oblong, and it didn't look inconspicuous. And so when he entered that McDonald's and from his looks and everything, they had got a still shot of him frequenting I believe it was a Starbucks. They got a shot of him smiling when he went into that McDonald's in Pennsylvania. That's how the employees caught up with him, and they said, "Oh, we think we got this guy. We think the guy that did this, is here, blah, 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 blah." Well, here's the deal. Now, Mangione's defense team, they are trying to get the death penalty charges dismissed. Now, counts 3 and 4 of this particular case are the second degree unaliving count, with which is an intentional killing count, right? And then count 4 is a criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree. This involves possession of a loaded firearm with the intent to use it unlawfully against another person. Now, if you recall, the ammunition in this particular case supposedly had little messages on there: depose, deny, little sort of political statements as it relates to this issue that Mangione allegedly had against the medical healthcare system. Mangione himself had some healthcare issues, but really they're saying that the motive had to do with his mother, who also had healthcare issues and was being denied by the healthcare insurance. Now, Brian Thompson's wife and family say that he had been receiving threats leading up to the unaliving. And so Mangione's folks are using this as a little bit as, ammo to say, well, he was being, uh, essentially, he was being threatened. It wasn't our guy. So let's talk about his defense team. Well, there are some very, very familiar names on his defense team. We've got Mark Agnifilo. Where do we know Mark Agnifilo from? Well, Mark Agnifilo is one of the lead attorneys for whom? Sean Puffy Diddy Combs. Yes, that Mark Agnifilo. And who else? Karen Agnifilo, who is Mark Agnifilo's wife. She is also one of Mangione's attorneys. Okay. And then there are 2 other attorneys that are on the case as well, unrelated to any other cases that we're talking about here at Castle Court. But it's very interesting that the Agnifilos are also on the Mangione case, which of course is also being heard right there in the Southern District of New York, in the same Lower Manhattan court building that Sean Combs' case was heard just over a year ago and earlier this year. So let's really get into this. They are asking that these counts, Mangione's defense team, are asking that these counts 3 and 4, be dismissed. Now, these are the counts in which he could potentially face the death penalty for. This is from a federal indictment brought against him in the December assassination, right? Now, back in April, the DOJ said, we're going after the death penalty. And ever since then, the defense team has been fervently trying to get the death penalty off of the table. Now, in the papers filed in Manhattan federal court, this was just last week, the defense team said that the DOJ should also be prevented from using at trial his statements to law enforcement officers and his backpack where a gun and ammunition were found. The reason they're saying that is because they said the police there in Pennsylvania never read Mangione his rights before he was questioned by law enforcement about his whereabouts, about any of that. I'm going to go to the actual filing here. Let me stop this. I'm going to go to the filing here so you can see some of this, and we'll go through it a little bit together here so you can see it. But his attorneys are saying, nope, you guys did not read him his rights. So therefore, you are not actually at liberty to be including anything, questions that you may have asked him there in that McDonald's. Okay. So this sort of goes through um, where this is Mangione here. You see a photo of him here. And they actually search him. They make him, get up, pat him down. They search him. And they do this twice there in that McDonald's. And they never, ever read him his Miranda rights. As a matter of fact, according to this court document, this court filing from Mangione's team just last week, they say that they even told him he was not arrested at that time, that they were just detaining him. Now let's see what they found. As part of this warrantless search, this is what the doc is saying. Inside the McDonald's, Patrolman Fox, which I'm assuming is one of these gentlemen here, retrieved a small item from inside the backpack that was enclosed in cardboard and wrapped in tape. Patrolman Fox took out his knife and sliced open the tape to find a computer chip inside. The officers continued their warrantless search, the document says, through Mr. Mangione's backpack at a McDonald's, even after he was removed from the restaurant by other officers and driven to the police precinct. During this continued search of the backpack, patrolwoman Wasser recovered a gun magazine loaded with bullets. Of course, a gun magazine is literally, for those of you who are not familiar with handguns or guns of any kind, it is the cartridge in which the ammunition is loaded and then clipped. It's literally the magazine that goes up inside the clip, and then the clip goes up, and then your uh your uh your gun is ready for use at that moment after you take the safety off, of course. So they said during this continued search of the backpack, patrol woman Wasser recovered a gun magazine loaded with bullets. Now realizing that she made a potentially devastating mistake by thoroughly searching the backpack of a murder suspect in a significant New York press case without a warrant. Wasser suddenly stated that she was searching through the backpack at McDonald's to make sure there wasn't, in quote, a bomb or anything in there before putting the backpack in the car. They claim, this is the defense, Agnifalo's team says, the falsity of that statement was made clear seconds when later another officer at McDonald's stated, now that we have found that, meaning the magazine, loaded magazine, let's bring it back to the precinct. Suddenly not concerned about a bomb, meaning this was just something she made up because she knew she made a mistake, because the other officer got there on the ground and never mentioned a bomb once, but mentioned the fact that they wanted to bring the loaded magazine back to the precinct as evidence. Um, so, and then they go through this and all of that. Okay, I'm going to stop that there. Now, what is the problem with them searching without reading his Miranda rights? Well, that's his right. You cannot lawfully arrest someone or search someone without Mirandizing them and without them giving you permission under the advisement of a Mirandize, um, for you to do that, for you to look through the backpack or whatever it might be. Because then these are items, whatever they find out prior to Mirandizing an individual can become inadmissible in court because of the fact that you've not read this person their rights. You have to do that. So Mangione's team is saying, well, counts 3 and 4 need to be completely booted because they didn't read him his rights and it was an unlawful search and seizure and it was an unlawful arrest because you did not Mirandize him. It's kind of like, police work 101. I'm very surprised that they didn't. I'm going to, we're going to keep a watch out on this to see how this sort of unfolds. But this is very interesting that they did not Mirandize Magione at the time. There was a lot going on with this particular case. They were searching high and low for this guy. And once, he was found, it was kind of like, okay, guys, this is, this is our guy. Let's hop to it, sort of thing. So it's very surprising to me that they never Mirandized Magione. And again, they've already, filed their intent to seek the death penalty on him. They've already said this is what we're doing. And since then, Team Agnifilo has been fervently trying to get that count dismissed because they do not. This is Magione here. There in the courtroom, one of his numerous courtroom appearances that he's made since the arrest. But this particular case will be interesting. It will be interesting to see if these counts get booted and what the judge has said. It'll be very, very interesting. Very interesting. They also said that the officers did not obtain a warrant before searching Mangione's backpack, and that is very necessary. Very, very necessary. You definitely have to have that. So it'll be interesting. Of course, on the scene, if you have a probable cause, I'm pretty sure that the DOJ is going to be leaning on probable cause, that they had probable cause to search this guy's backpack, to search this guy's person because of the fact that, he, matched the description of this person that they have been flashing on the news, that there were people that recognized him from the McDonald's restaurant, blah, 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 blah. So we had the probable cause to actually look in his backpack. You don't need a warrant if the police don't need a warrant if they have probable cause to search for certain items. And they did in this particular case because his backpack matched the description of what they had on the news. So that to me is going to be a little bit iffy for the defense on that one. They do have a leg to stand on as it relates to the Mirandizement or the lack thereof. But will it, knock those two counts out, 3 and 4, the most serious, which we're looking at, the death penalty on? I'm not sure. Now, this could knock death penalty off the table, however. This could be one of those situations where this could be the thing that sort of cuts the ribbon on death penalty. As you know, I've told you guys that I spent many years at the district attorney's office as a public information officer, and I worked on 3 death penalty cases. One of those cases that I worked on was the Aurora Theater shooting case. And that particular case, we were seeking the death penalty on that case in the very beginning. But there were prosecutorial errors that happened during the life cycle of the case. After my time on the case, the lead attorney on the case, who was the elected DA on the case, tweeted something. There was some sort of error on the prosecutor's portion where they tweeted something or said something improper during a social media post, and it actually knocked death off of the table for James Holmes, who is the convicted unaliver of the Aurora Theater shooting. And so this could be very similar in the sense that, this is a, investigatorial error, and this could be one of those things that knocks death off of the table. It does not acquit this person. It does not, absolve them from the fact that they committed this crime, but it does keep death from being the ultimate punishment in the situation. So we're going to, continue to keep our eyes on this, stay on top of this. But the Mangione case is going to be, one that will be sort of, a long case that we will all sort of, be, looking at for a while, because, it's just going to be a slow moving case. We'll get, droplets of information here and there. They've got, a lot of hearings to go on this one. So we'll keep you guys tuned in, but this is our first step at covering the Mangione case. And even since December 4th, not much has happened in this case. I mean, there have been, there has been movement in terms of, him being sort of looked at, going through sort of like the court process and the judicial process and all of it. But in terms of, the Mangione case, in terms of big movement in the case, there hasn't been a lot of movement in the case. This will not be like the Sean Combs case, where this moved through the court system fairly easily, but it will, be like a slow drip. But I will give you a few details about the case, the background. For those of you, some of you, I realize some of you may not have been paying attention to this case like, everyone else, because sometimes, cases just get off from under you and you don't realize that, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't remember all the particulars on this one. So I will share that with you now and kind of give you the background. Now, Luigi Magione is an Ivy League graduate. He was a valedictorian of his prep school. His family is a prominent family in Maryland, real estate businesses. Okay, so this is an educated guy. Law enforcement officials and prosecutors alleged that Magione had a premeditated plan to unalive Bill Thompson, who I showed earlier, the CEO of the former CEO, rather, of United Healthcare, and that it was motivated by a grudge against the healthcare industry, right? Now, they found a diary and other writings of Mangione's, and it reportedly expressed the fact that he was hostile and he had hostility, rather, towards the industry and corporate executives. And one note allegedly said, and quote, it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming, he said. Okay. So, in order for Magione to have committed this in the way in which the federal government and state prosecutors say he actually committed this, he would have had to stalk Mr. Thompson for some time to find out when he was going to be at this particular Manhattan hotel for this investor summit. Okay. So that's part of the charges as well. And the defense is fighting that. Now let's talk about the crime. Now, authorities are saying that Magione had stalked again Thompson for several days. That's why I just said to you guys, he had, in order to have done this, he would have had to have stalked him before shooting him outside of a Midtown Manhattan hotel. Now, shell casings found at the scene, as I mentioned earlier, reportedly had the words deny, delay, and depose written on them. Now, this is a reference to a book that has been critical of insurance companies. So that it was kind of like the red flag there. Now, his arrest, Magione was apprehended in Altoona, Pennsylvania, just at that McDonald's, and that's what I was talking about. The Agnifilos were describing in their filing to the court that during that arrest there in Altoona, Pennsylvania, at that McDonald's, that the officers did not read Magione his rights. They did not have a warrant, and so therefore they want these counts dismissed. But they caught up with him only 5 days after the shooting. So this was a 1 week long hunt for Mangione. It was everywhere on every news outlet you could think of. And he was initially held on a local gun and forgery charge. And then he was extradited back to New York. Okay. Now the charges in New York, Magione faces multiple counts, including murder, unaliving, and terrorism. And then following his arrest, federal prosecutors went ahead and announced that they would be seeking the death penalty. Now, his online activity, what does that look like? Now, online, he maintained an extensive uh, online presence where he posted about health issues, AI, societal topics, and an online trail also shows that he struggled with chronic back pain himself. So that's really the Mangione rundown in a nutshell, guys. Obviously, the public reaction has been a little bit sympathetic to Mangione because of the fact that so many people have issues with healthcare. This has sparked many debates about, whether it was right or wrong, if this was a situation where he was sort of, sort of like a Robin Hood, if you will, or just seeking vengeance on behalf of the small guy, if you will. Some people have portrayed Magione as a hero, fighting corporate greed, while others still view him as a cold-blooded killer. Listen, guys, sometimes I do give, of course, not sometimes, I do give my opinion because, hey, I give commentary on my show, okay? And in my opinion, I think this is a cold-blooded killing. I mean, listen, we all have probably been denied by insurance companies at least once or twice for some reason. Some of us have been able to subvert ultimately being denied, but we do know that insurance is a tough thing. Sometimes they only want to pay, a small percentage on something that you need to have done. And sometimes that causes a delay in our health progress. And we know that that is a problem and that is just unacceptable. But at no time is that a green light to take someone else's life. This situation with Mangione and the assassination of Brian Thompson was quite sad. I was saddened by the entire thing, not only for Brian Thompson's family, but also for Mangione being 27 years old, throwing his entire life away for this for this. I had also heard too, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, that his mother, also, she has a lot of health issues. And he was sort of looking at that as well. So that could have been a possible motive there. But again, like, this is a guy that comes from a very prominent family. They're very wealthy. So even though, they are wealthy, still has the same issues as, the poor or middle class people have as it relates to being denied health care, health coverage. So we will keep our eyes on the pulse of the Mangione of it all. Again, the last, legal turn on this is, we're waiting for the judge to give an opinion, an order on the defense's request to have counts 3 and 4 dismissed due to the officers in Altoona, Pennsylvania, never giving Mangione, reading him his Miranda rights before taking him down to the station, and certainly never obtaining a warrant before searching through his things. But again, and I'll repeat this for those of you who may have missed it, with that, when you are arresting, or when an officer is arresting someone, if they have probable cause to search this person's car, person, things, etc., then that usually is cleared and there's no issue there. They had probable cause because they had photos of Mangione all over the everywhere. And they suspected that this was Mangione here, especially because of the kind of peculiar backpack that Mangione was carrying. And that was the backpack that was splattered all over the news. And so they had probable cause to search him based upon him matching an ID. So that likely will be thrown out. But as it relates to the Mirandizing, the lack thereof, there could be a leg to stand on there. And this may be the key to Mangione getting the death penalty off the table, which the federal government announced that they were pursuing back in April of this year. Okay, guys, so we're going to move on and we'll come back later on with any updates there. Now, we're going to go to this mass shooting that occurred there in Mississippi, Leland, Mississippi, this weekend. It's pretty just incredible because these were actually, I believe, like 5 separate shootings that occurred, 4 or 5 separate shooting events that occurred there in Mississippi, where the activities took place. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Where the activities actually took place um, during homecoming. Now, this is a very historical Black neighborhood that all of this took place in. This was said to be an extremely sad situation where, folks just did not understand what was happening. And after sort of reading through this and, seeing all the details, I don't even understand why or what was going on. They've not yet come up with a motive that makes sense. But let's talk about all of the events that have happened. Now, first of all, there have been multiple arrests made after the shootings at a Mississippi high school homecoming. And what we know is a little bit limited, but we'll get into it. Now, this occurred back on October 10th. This was just this past Friday. Authorities have made multiple arrests after 5 shootings in 24 hours relating to a homecoming football event in Mississippi, have left at least 9 people dead and several others injured. Now, this is the latest death toll because over the weekend, we heard that it was initially 6 people who had been unalive, and then it went up to 8, and now we're up to 9. Now, 3 shooting events were reported on Friday by authorities and were related to a high school football event in the state. 8 people were unalived and 12 others were injured in total. Now, the next day, on a Saturday, 2 additional shootings related to university events were reported on Saturday. One at Alcorn State University, which is an HBCU, and another one at Jackson State University, which is an HBCU. Of course, Jackson State University has some recent fame, as Deion Sanders used to be the head football coach there. One person has one person was unalived and three others were injured in total on the Saturday events. And there were five charged after six were unalived in Leland, Mississippi shooting. The FBI investigation has continued. Five people. Now, this is a separate, this is, I believe, still I think this is still the Friday event that we're talking about up top here. So, five people were arrested and charged in connection to a shooting that left six people unalived and at least 10 others on Friday. And then on Saturday, that's when we had three others injured and then an additional person or unalived. I believed two of the three that were injured passed away later, and then this additional person on Saturday, they were unalived. So that leaves three unalived total from Saturday, and then that is what gives us a total death toll of nine, and then gives us a total injury, a toll of 12. So according to the FBI and the FBI's Jackson Field office, four people are facing capital murder charges, and a fifth person is facing an attempted murder charge. So we're going to talk about that. Tavion L. Powell, 29, has been charged with capital murder. William Bryant, 29, has been charged with capital murder. Morgan Lattimore, 25, has been charged with capital murder. Terrangenol S. Martin, 33, has been charged with capital murder. And then we have Latoya A. Powell, who I believe is the aunt to Tavion Powell up here up at the top, who's 29. Latoya Powell, 44, she has been charged with attempted murder. So 4 counts of capital murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Now, authorities have not disclosed a possible motive for the shootings in Leland on Friday, but the FBI said that the gunfire appears to have been sparked by a disagreement among several individuals. Now, other arrests are pending as the investigation continues. Now, the photo that I have up are folks that they are actually still looking for, right? So on the left here, they have an unknown black female that they're looking for, a unknown male here, and then we have another unknown black male here. The third photo, and I'm the descriptions I'm giving are the descriptions from the flyer here, and an unknown fourth, which is an unknown black male. Now, according to Leland Mayor John Lee, the shooting occurred around 12 a.m. after the Friday homecoming football game at Leland High School, and then after the game, people gathered near the city's like little, main street to hang out, but that is where the shots were fired. And then, according to the last report issued from the coroner's office, there were six fatalities. But then the death toll went up because they had a shooting the next day. So they said that the victims that were identified at the time, the six initially, were 41-year-old Orishama Johnson, 19-year-old Calvin Plant, 25-year-old Shelbyona Powell, and 18-year-old Caslin Johnson, pronounced unalived at the scene. And then we had two other victims identified as 18-year-old Amos Brantley Jr. and 34-year-old Jermichael Jones, who later died from their injuries at a local hospital. And now they're asking that if any members of the community with information will please contact the FBI. And it is just so very, very sad. And then I'm not even done yet because there's more to this story, more to it. Now, number one, Leland's a small town. This has like fewer than 4,000 people, the town. And this is also the site of the 2024 death of Kadarius Smith, who was run over by a police officer. He hadn't even graduated from high school. His mother accepted his diploma on his behalf. Really very sad. His high school diploma, that is. But it's just a sad thing. I mean, you just look at this and you're like, what is going on with this senseless violence, especially among, historical Black communities, especially communities that are held in high esteem, communities that house HBCUs. Like, what are we doing? We are the cornerstone, or supposed to be the cornerstone of Black excellence, Black education, all of that. And what are we doing here? This just really a sad thing. Now, four teenagers were arrested and charged in connection to a homecoming night shooting at Heidelberg High School that left three people dead. And these are the additional people that sort of round out, I believe, the nine people that ended up unalived over the weekend there in Mississippi. Now, according to Jasper County Sheriff Randy Johnson, Jadarius Cortez, Page, and Jabari Deshaun Collins were booked yesterday, into the Jasper County Jail. And Page, who was 19, was charged with accessory after the fact. Collins, 19, was charged with possession of a deadly weapon on educational property. Two additional suspects were previously arrested and charged in connection to the case. 19-year-old Demarion Starks, and 18-year-old Tyler Jarrett Gudlow. Now, Jasper County Jail inmate records show that Starks was arrested Monday, and faces one count of accessory after the fact and one count of tampering with physical evidence. So the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is assisting in the case, but Helderberg police, they're going to lead the charge on this one. This is just really sad. This is just really heartbreaking. I've been talking about mass shootings and how I have been just not understanding why these things have been taking place. I've been talking about, white male rage, um, because they have been sort of like the ones to sort of lead the helm of these mass shootings. But this is the second Black mass shooting that we have seen within the last 2 weeks. There was one last week that I did not report on, that occurred near an HBCU as well. And it revolved around, I believe, a football game as well. So I'm just really troubled by this because normally, we don't, and especially in historically Black communities, especially where HBCUs are, and education being really important in those particular areas and campuses, we usually don't have these sorts of goings on, these sorts of fatal shenanigans. But it seems it's becoming a increasingly more trend, and I'm really concerned about that. And not only that, but just, public safety in general, be it Black, white, Latin, Asian, whatever. It's just really sad that now we cannot, go and enjoy a high school or a college football game. That you can't, send your kids out to, have fun with their friends, with fear that they won't come back, or in one piece, or they won't come back at all. These things are very perplexing and disconcerting. It's something that we need to take on seriously as a nation, but certainly within our individual communities as well. Especially, communities of color. We're very known to, be have tight communities, be responsible for one another, really sort of, be sort of the cornerstone of responsibility for our children. This is the reason why I say, and I said it a couple of weeks ago as it related to the Chicago violence and the unalivings that go on over there. The real heroes are the people who are in the trenches there within the community every single day. Even within this particular situation where, this was going on in Mississippi within this historically Black community, there are people there who are in the trenches trying to, triage, trying to prevent this kind of violence from going on. But they need help, but not the type of help that, meets violence with violence, but it's about creating more opportunity, sustainability. Historically, what has happened in societies, regardless of color, race, ethnicity, community, etc., is that when societies go through huge sort of upheavals of financial instability, financial oppression, things of that nature, lack of job security, an instability, that the crime rate goes up. Now, I'm not giving an excuse, so please don't say, Cass and Court, are you giving it people killers excuses? No, I am not. What I am saying though is that there is a connective tissue of trending as it relates to folks who act adversely and in violent ways when they do not or have a lack of opportunity, a lack of finances. They will find illegal ways to sort of subvert that need. Also, people who just don't have much to live for tend to be those people wrapped and ramped in violence. So we heard with these particular unalivings that these had to do with an argument and people just being set off by anything. So it could just be one of those situations, but whatever it is, it's very unfortunate to hear that. Okay, guys, this is going to be it for Cast and Court TV for the day. This has been your girl, Ms. Public Info, with the latest, greatest, and sometimes hated updates of the most high-profile cases going on around the country. We'll keep you updated on both of these cases, see if there's any um, updates here, more news, and definitely on the Magione of it all. But we will see you soon. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.